Our program today supports 4 areas of focus of Rotary International, that being saving mothers and children, supporting education, growing local economies, and saving the environment. Rochelle Myers is Philanthropic Services and Program Director of Whatcom Community Foundation. Rochelle grew up in a tiny Iowa community, just 334 people. She graduated from the Drake University in '96 and spent the next 4 years working in marketing communications and enjoying the barbecue and culture of Kansas City. In 1999, she moved 1,800 miles to Bellingham after falling in love with this beautiful area. And 20 years later, she still thinks it's the best decision she's ever made. With more than 22 years of experience in the nonprofit sector, including 4 years as Director of Allied Arts and 8 years at the Whatcom Literacy Council, Rachel has worked and volunteered with diverse organizations committed to building a stronger community. She is also an avid reader and served as a trustee for the Bellingham Public Library for 11 years. Rachel joined the Whatcom Community Foundation team in 2015. Rachel, welcome again to the Rotary Club of Bellingham, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Paul. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here today and join your meeting. Thanks for inviting us. My boss and friend and colleague, Mauri Ingram, who's our CEO, is also here. She's going to jump in on a couple parts of the presentation. I know you all know her, but I'm going to let her introduce herself really briefly too, and just say hello. So, Mauri, if you want to join me.
Terrific. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much, Paul, for inviting us. And Rachel's going to do, as she said, the majority of the presentation. I'm just excited to be back. It's been a while since I've been here. It's great to see you all. And as you all know, I think there's a varying levels of awareness of the Community Foundation in the club. I know we've got former board members, we've got donors, and then we have some folks for whom this may be the first introduction. So we have a very broad mission. We do a little bit of in a lot of different areas, and today we're really going to focus on our work during COVID. So I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel and then be back with you in a little bit.
All right, fantastic. So I am going to share my screen. There might be a few clicks around while I get I don't have my 3 monitors. I only have 2 monitors because I am working from home. So if you start hearing a cat knocking my door or my daughter pops in, you know, this is the life we're in right now. So I think I want that screen, and let's do that. I'm gonna move, hold on. You're gonna see a little bit of there we go. Hopefully you're seeing a screen that says strategy and innovation in a crisis. Yes, we did it. Look at that. Wonderful. Okay, so thanks again formally for inviting us here today. As Mauri mentioned, we're really going to focus most of our presentation today on how we've shifted and adjusted to the events of the past year of the pandemic and the social unrest and everything that has shifted in our community. But we wanted to set a little bit of context around what is a community foundation. I know, as Mauri said, many of you know us and have worked with us in the past, but some of you don't. And so I find that when I'm explaining the community foundation, a Swiss Army knife is a very helpful analogy. Why is it a helpful analogy? Because we really see ourselves as a philanthropic, as full of different philanthropic tools. And sometimes those tools look like funding, you know, through grant making or scholarships. Sometimes we reach into the tool around leadership. Sometimes it's about connecting people or collaborating with other people, bringing people together around a common cause. And sometimes it's about responding to a pandemic, and which we've obviously never done before because we have never faced this before. So I'm going to take you through a little bit about our organization and sort of how we've shifted and adjusted alongside the community over the past year. We're really, as a community foundation, we're of and with the community. So we are fueled by gifts, by donations of all sizes, from $5 to millions of dollars, and really keeping us focused on how can we make a difference to our neighbors and make Whatcom County a good place, a better place to live for all of us, which leads me to our vision. Oops, no, it doesn't. There we go. Hopefully you're seeing this. So our vision is simple. Our vision is that everyone who lives here thrives. And I think our vision is very much rooted also in our founding. About 25 years ago, we're coming up on our 25th anniversary as a community foundation. But nearly 25 years ago, a group of friends came together here in Whatcom County, and they were really driven by one kind of fundamental question. And that question was, how can we make life here in Whatcom County better for all of our neighbors? And honestly, that simple question has driven our work ever since. Really trying to figure out, as a community, where can we go? How can we move forward in all areas to give all of us a better life and a better community, stronger community? So our mission is to amplify the force of philanthropy by connecting people and ideas and resources so that our communities can flourish. So this is really, again, pretty a simple, straightforward idea. You all know that when you're cooking a meal, it's important to have the right ingredients in the right order so you end up with the dish that you want. And we kind of see our mission in the same way, trying to bring different assets and facets of the community together in order to end up with the community that we want to see here in Whatcom County. We all love this place. We all want to see it prosper and grow. And so we see our mission kind of right in the center of that effort. And I just wanted to take a second before I talk about the rest of the Community Foundation's context I was going to share. I just wanted to mention scholarships because we've had a long and a wonderful partnership with the club around scholarships. You all have been extremely generous in supporting many scholarships over the years. Helping us to remove the barriers that stand between deserving young people and the futures that they want to create. So thank you very, very much for that support. I think last year we awarded about $200,000 in scholarships to local students. And honestly, we could probably do an entire presentation just on scholarships and that whole program, but that's not our topic for today. So I just wanted to take a second to touch on that before we move on to talk about what we believe. So very simply, we believe that giving here in this community matters, that it makes a difference, that philanthropy can make a difference for all of us here in the community. And getting a little bit more detailed around our work and what drives it, I wanted to share our strategic framework. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, don't worry. But I wanted to share this because our board and team developed this document to really guide and drive our work in the community, really help us stay focused on what matters and how we can help this community thrive. And reach our mission and our vision. I'm really going to focus in today on our strategies, which I'll get to in a second, and kind of how truly valuable this document became to us during the pandemic, because we realized how important it was to have a flexible strategic framework to guide our work as we started adapting to a whole new world and a whole new environment around us. So the strategies piece is really how we do what we do at the Community Foundation. So I'll go over them briefly now, and then we'll dive in a little bit to them as the presentation goes on. So our strategies are fostering partnerships, putting dollars to work through things like scholarships and grant making, strengthening nonprofits. So that's around helping nonprofits build the skills they need to have the impact they want to have in the community, helping donors make a difference. It's pretty self-explanatory, helping to connect donors with what they love and what they care about, and then make a difference in those areas, and then advocating for equity. Now, all these strategies are important for us to be successful, and we're going to take a little time to tell you how we pivoted and adjusted this year as new challenges came before us. So I'll start with fostering partnerships. Total sort of foundation for our work and how we approach working. We're all about collaboration and partnering with others. So the Whatcom Center for Philanthropy is one of our key and important partnerships. We moved into the Center for Philanthropy 5 or 6 years ago, I guess, with United Way of Whatcom County and Chuckanet Health Foundation. We share a couple meeting rooms and a break room. We each have our own offices, but we share these shared spaces together. And that's really, deepened our connection with those other two philanthropies in the community, helped us collaborate more easily. But when the pandemic hit, that connection really deepened significantly. Our team started meeting weekly with the teams from Chuckanet Health Foundation and United Way to identify the community needs, kind of the most pressing community needs, and then to work together to collaborate our grant making so that we were, sort of in sync with each other as we gave grants out. We also decided to create one combined application center for organizations to come who are seeking funding, just to keep it simple and easy. And then on our side at the Community Foundation, we were really committed to turning those grant requests around as quickly as possible, getting money out the door within a couple days, really trying to make it as efficient as we could. So again, super important partners. We know we can't do it alone. None of us can. I mean, the issues that we face are too vast and too important. So we're really grateful to have those partners at the Center for Philanthropy. The Lochtimish Foundation, which is the community foundation for the Lummi people, is another partner that we really deepened our connection with during over the course of the past year. We already had a nice connection, a good relationship with Lochtimish and their leadership, but we deepened that commitment and that connection to Lochtimish. We ended up really leaning into the idea of trust-based philanthropy, which is an idea that's been it's been around for a while in philanthropy, but in essence, what it means is when you have a relationship of trust with another organization like we've built with Lochtimish, it's easier and more effective to give grants without a lot of restrictions because you believe and trust that they're going to use those funds to meet the needs of their community, because obviously they know the Lummi community better than we do. So we've been delighted to be able to connect with them in that way. And then the other example of fostering partnerships that we wanted to share is the Millworks project, which some of you may have heard about, and it's a total example of community partnerships and collaboration. And I wanted to have Mauri just share a little bit more about that project.
Great, thanks, Rachel. So the Millworks project started out as a result of our work in the local food system, which we've been doing for well over a decade. And so the idea initially started out as a local food campus, which would bring a whole different variety of food-based organizations and emerging businesses, startup enterprises together in one location so that they would be communicating, they'd be able to share resources, we could invest in infrastructure that would benefit a lot of different groups. And when we spoke with the Port of Bellingham, which of course owns the Waterfront District site, which is where we are hoping to build the project, they said, we love that idea and we'd like to see more happening on the site. So we'd love for you to think about what else could be put to work there that would be compatible. So we already had some other concepts for different areas in mind, and we decided that we'd pull back. This is a little over a 3-acre site on the waterfront, and we now have about probably 80 to 90 units of affordable workforce housing that will go in, a child care center, and a wide variety of other uses that I won't go into because of our time limitation, but that's something that we're certainly happy to share more about if you have questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, we were really challenged, I'll be very honest with you, to condense what we wanted to say into 20 minutes. So I hope we're not talking too fast, but we have so much to tell you. So I'm transitioning now back into our strategies and coming back to the putting dollars to work strategy, which in this case, as we're talking about the pandemic, is really about the Resilience Fund. The Resilience Fund was set up by our organization years ago, knowing that at some point our community would have to respond to a crisis of some kind. We didn't know what that would be. Would it be an earthquake or a natural disaster? Would it be some kind of other emergency? We certainly had no idea it would be a pandemic, but here we are. And so early on, when the pandemic began, we allocated funds as an organization into the Resilience Fund. And our board made that decision. And then the community came alongside us in a huge way. It's hard to describe how amazing and how generous this community has been over the past year. It's moving. There have been more than $2.3 million have been raised for the Resilience Fund so far. In fact, we might have more than that now because I was on vacation last week and gifts are just continuing to come in. We're continuing to raise money. In addition to the amazing generosity of the local individuals, the donors, businesses, organizations here locally, we've also attracted more than $530,000 from outside of the community. A huge chunk of that was through the All In Washington effort, which was a statewide effort to raise money for COVID relief. And all the funds that we raised locally for All in Washington were also matched, which was pretty amazing. And so far, we've deployed as an organization more than $2.5 million to help our neighbors through this crisis. So a huge part of that was the Resilience Fund, as I mentioned, which I think about $1.8 million has come out of the Resilience Fund so far. And then the individual donors with whom we work at the Community Foundation that have donor advised funds or other types of funds at the Community Foundation have also allocated over $600,000 directly to organizations to help. It's just been a phenomenal year of giving and generosity and support. And we've really sort of narrowed it down to these 7 areas of support that we've done most of our grant making through the Resilience Fund. And those areas are alleviating hunger, supporting housing, helping people access mental and physical health care, prevention of violence and abuse, aiding in the economic recovery, supporting childcare, which as many of you know was a crisis before the pandemic hit, and then also supporting essential workers. So again, we don't have time. We'd love to tell you stories and examples from all 7 areas, but we don't have that time today. So we're really going to focus in on some of the work that was done around housing and alleviating hunger. So let me start first with housing. You guys all know we have a housing crisis here in Whatcom County, and the pandemic only highlighted that, aggravated that, deepened that, however you want to describe that. But you might not know, and what I actually wasn't aware of, was the depth of the family homelessness problem. We don't have a family shelter here in Whatcom County, so if there's a family that's homeless, it's very difficult for them to stay together and find temporary housing in particular. So one of the ways that our community supports families who are unhoused, oh, and I guess another thing that I wasn't aware of, but it's good to know, or it sort of makes sense when you think about it, is oftentimes families who are struggling with housing end up crashing with other family members or friends, to kind of get through the really rough patches. But because of COVID, that wasn't as easy for families to find other friends or family that would let them stay because of the virus. People were worried that they could get sick. So family homelessness jumped. And so one of the ways that our community helps families stabilize and get into temporary and then hopefully permanent housing is through hotel motel stays. And it's very expensive to do that, but it is really the only way to keep the family unit together. So I'll tell you a little bit more about this in another section, but we were able to work with a donor who wanted to make a difference during the pandemic to really support a lot more families in the sort of short-term hotel motel stays. And we ended up getting this note back from one of the mothers. And I just wanted to read it out loud because I think it's so poignant and moving. So she wrote, "For my family, because of my health, it has been such a blessing to know we have a warm, safe place to stay while we search for permanent housing, as well as an easy way for my son to continue online school and be successful with it. Without the hotel, we would be sleeping in our car. And as a mother, that is a very scary thing to have to do with your children." So yeah, as a mom, personally, I have a 10-year-old, almost 10-year-old. It's just hard to, having your kid do school from home is not easy, but it's way easier when you have a home for them to work in. So that's a very moving response. Transitioning now into our work around hunger. I'm gonna turn this over to Mauri again. We did a lot of work in this area, rehabbed and continue to do a lot of work in this area. So she's gonna give us a snapshot of some of our work around fighting hunger through collaboration, leadership, and creativity.
Great. So as I mentioned earlier, talking about the Millworks project, the Community Foundation has been working in the local food system in a variety of ways for a very long time. And when the pandemic hit, the county executive asked the Community Foundation to serve as the coordinator for all of the local food security organizations in response to the pandemic under the umbrella of the Whatcom Unified Command Structure. So we were able to leverage the relationships that we already have with all of the food banks in the community, with the Council on Aging, which, as you all know, runs the Meals on Wheels and More program, with all of the local food service programs in the school district, and with other organizations that work in the food system and in food security. And that freed them up to really figure out how they were going to all adapt to this new circumstance. Everybody had to go to a completely different form of food delivery than they were used to. Home delivery popped up in a much more robust way, and that was a partnership that was made much easier out as a result of the efforts of the groups coming together. And Rachel, if you can go to the next slide, that would be great. So one of the things that we did early on was to bring everybody together for a planning session. Everybody got together to do some triage work and figure out how to, again, leverage resources, as we've talked a lot about. But we also wanted to make sure that we were prioritizing a variety of things. So number one, obviously, we wanted to make sure that everybody in the community was getting access to the food that they need. Many people have transportation barriers, health barriers, et cetera. We also wanted to make sure that we could actually utilize as much locally produced and processed food as possible, because we had restaurants that were closed. We had other contracts and relationships and programs that were shutting down. And so a lot of local farmers and local value-added producers didn't have the markets that they were used to. And then finally, we wanted to make sure that we were figuring out new opportunities and making sure that people could remain safe. And so one of the things, again, there's much more to unpack here. But one of the benefits of getting everybody together to have these conversations is that we were able to do the kind of behind the scenes work, surveying all the organizations so that they could prioritize both individually and all together what their capital needs were. And as a result, we were able to take one request to the county for CARES dollars for about $600,000. And that resulted in a whole variety of things like refrigerated trucks, pallet jacks, and a lot of other equipment that has really helped the local emergency food system providers step up and meet the challenge. I'll stop there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So obviously it's been a huge honor and just a great role for the Community Foundation to be in partnership with these other organizations. The Whatcom Council on Aging was one of the key partners in the Food Security Task Force, and just wanted to share this note from them. I won't read the whole thing, but they thanked us and they mentioned that the leadership you're providing is so helpful as we work to meet a growing need in a constantly changing environment. So just a really cool opportunity to work alongside these folks to feed our neighbors and make sure people had the food they needed during this pandemic. So a couple of I know are we out of time or do we still have
We need
time?
to wrap up, yes.
We need to wrap up. Okay, well, next time we come back, we'll tell you more about strengthening nonprofits and working with donors to make a difference, which is, at the heart of so much of what we do. This particular story that on this slide is about some donors who decided to make a $75,000 matching gift to the Extend a Hand project through the Herald and ended up supporting the Opportunity Council's housing. I mentioned earlier the family housing and Unity Care Northwest access to medical care there. And they went from raising, I think, about $30,000 last year with Extend a Hand. Thanks to this match, they raised, I think, over $170,000 and like so many more families were helped. So just wanted to share that quick story. And this is us by the numbers. For those of you who like the data, I mentioned we were established in 1996, so we're almost 25. Our philanthropic assets are around $42 million. In grant making, we've done about $39 million over our history, and we tend to grant out between $3.5 and $4.5 million a year. We've attracted more than $25 million to the community from outside of Whatcom County, and we have a staff of 9 and 10 board members. Okay, questions from anyone?
This is John. I'm interested in learning more about your low-income housing initiative. Is there more on your website?
I'm wondering, John, are you thinking of Millworks?
Well, I'm thinking of Millworks in particular, but if anything else there. But yes.
Well, the website, you had to bring the website up, didn't you, John? I'm just kidding. We're building a new website, and that's why it's a little sore subject for me. There's a little bit more information on our website around that, but more to come on our new website, which is probably about a month out at this point. I know, Mauri and I'd be happy to talk with you more about that, though.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? It's hard to
I had a quick question along those same lines. Are you working with the tiny homes and in terms of housing to try and solve the problem of the homeless folks that have been migrating around the community the past couple months?
Well, I do know, Mauri probably knows more than I do about that, but we have made grants around housing to the Road to Home, which is the newer organization that's set up with, it's the newest, I guess, tiny home organization. Mauri, do you have more to share about that?
Yes, just to say that we're supporting a lot of work being done by the Opportunity Council and by some of the other larger organizations, and making sure that there's a lot of folks and a lot of resources available in the especially emergency housing environment right now with the pandemic. So we're trying to be really careful to make sure we're putting investment where it's harder to get otherwise. And so, as Rachel said, we have made a grant to Road to Home and are supporting several other organizations in that arena as well.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful program. I'm going to go ahead and bring it to a close and take back over again.
Thank
Rachel,
you.
thank you. Mauri, thank you. Great to see you, Mauri.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Nice program.